I gotta do things on my phone.
That's the idea. Welcome into Sports Around the Bar, your favorite sports talk show, I'm sure. As always, I'm Jakey Bartender, and I'm joined here on Center Stool by my co-host, Drew. And Drew, here we are, man. It's crunch time. Both of our teams in the divisional round of the playoffs. Are you excited? Kansas City going to be matching up against the Houston Texans. And then next week, they're going to get to play the Titans.
Talking to me?
Apparently not.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. Dude, I'm stoked,
You're actually going to
man.
get to watch your team play a playoff game, right?
Yeah, we're
Exciting.
never here. Wait a minute. Yeah, we are.
But it's still exciting, right?
You guys aren't normally here.
Sometimes. 2 years ago, remember? And the fact they got a win, too. If you remember, they beat somebody.
No, they didn't.
Yeah, I think they wore red and had a really annoying chant that definitely is not copied by every other Native American
Who's that?
based team. That's the Titans. At least it's original. You got the
Original
Florida
if you're
State
a Spartan.
Braves. Pretty much, like I said, every other team. I'm just surprised the Indians don't do it. That's just about the only team that doesn't. They're like, oh, that's it's so ridiculous. Everyone, it's so contrived. Everybody does it. Okay, we'll save the trash talk when we actually play each other. How about that? Can we move on?
We get past Baltimore first before you start talking all this.
Get past Houston first. Didn't Houston beat you?
No.
Pretty sure they did.
Yes.
Uh-oh. And now we're going to get to see if Houston can pull it off twice. We're going to be talking about that game. We're going to be talking about my game, the Titans and Ravens. We're going to be talking about the 49ers and Vikings, I guess. It's going on. It's going to be important. And then I didn't know the Seahawks were even an NFL team. I guess we're going to talk about them too. We're talking about all that action today as well as anything else you want to talk about. So welcome in, guys, as I pull this up and as I get into it.
David, good to see you, man. James, good to see you.
All right.
What?
Back for round two, apparently.
Oh, did you already say that?
No, I didn't.
Oh.
I didn't. But that's okay.
Matthew, good to see you.
Are we just ruining this? Is this just the worst opening we've ever had?
No, just want to turn the
It feels
show off.
like it. Yeah,
Just
can we
turn
start
it off.
over?
Just-
Technical difficulties, we're starting over.
Ah!
Ignore all that. Good to see you guys. I know Matthew's looking forward to this Vikings-49ers matchup.
He wants to know what you said about his Vikings. His Vikings. He wants to know about what you said. What'd you say about it?
He actually doesn't want to know because he heard me. He says, watch what I say about him. And I am. I am watching it because it's the first game I'm going to be watching tomorrow. And it's always easier before your team plays. I'm nervous about my team. It seems like the first game goes just flying by because you're always worried about what your team's going to do, and then your team plays, and it takes like 12 and a half hours. But let's go into that matchup. Let's talk about what I'm going to be sweating out before my team plays early in the afternoon, 3:30 local time, 4:30 if you're on the East Coast. The Vikings are going on the road to play the 49ers. And Drew, I didn't give them a lot of chance against the Saints. I feel like those two teams are basically on the same level, Saints and 49ers. Do they have two miracles up their sleeves? Do they have two upsets coming?
Oh, man. It's going to need to be a miracle. Not because I don't think they can't win the game. It's just because I think the Niners are ready to roll. I think they're ready to roll. It's going to be tough. They're getting D Ford back, which I think is a huge addition to that defense, to that pass rush. Yeah, they did really good last week against the Saints, but this is a different kind of animal. It's just a different animal altogether.
Yeah, I think you're likely to see a much more effective running attack than you did against the Saints. I mean, the Saints seemed uninterested in running him, and this is going to be the key here. How do they limit that? Because this year, Jimmy Garoppolo, say whatever you want about him in the past, has not looked like the same guy. He's been effective at times. He's had some good games, but there have also been, some doubts. There have been some people saying, is this the quarterback of the future that they spent all that money on? Are we getting that level of play? My question here is that your game plan? Because if I'm the Vikings, I'm saying, let's take away this run. Let's focus on that and see if Jimmy G is as good as advertised and see if we can match him pound for pound with Kirk Cousins.
I think they can, man. It's not that I don't want to give the Viking chance. Like,
good to see you, Jeremy.
Like Matthew says, nobody gave his Vikings a chance against the Saints. It's not that I don't give them a chance against the Niners. I just think it's tough, man. It's a tough matchup. I think they match you up pound for pound everywhere that your strength is. I think they have just as much to come right back at it. You don't got an aging quarterback. You got Jimmy G, who stayed healthy all year long. So if you do push him to pass, he's got a great tight end. He's got good receivers. He's got good backs. I know you could say that about the Saints too, but not as many weapons as I think
he's got one good receiver, kind of like the Saints had. The difference is George Kittle is not Jared Cook, right?
I don't think so. I think when you add...
But Emmanuel Sanders isn't Michael Thomas too. So
right, but when you add in like Godwin and and the rest of them, I think he has a better receiving core than the Saints have. You got to get that.
Depth-wise, probably. But again, Michael Thomas,
Not
as unbeatable as that guy
ceiling,
seems to be.
but at the depth of it.
Sure. Right. Yeah, now that I'll drink to. 100%. You're 100% right on that. But, again, it's a different kind of animal. This is going to be a team that's going to be more invested in running, I think. I think Kyle Shanahan's made it a point pretty much all year long, saying it doesn't matter if it's Mostert, it doesn't matter if it's Breida, it doesn't matter if it's Coleman. We're going to have one of these guys have his big game against you, and you're not going to be able to stop all three.
Jason, good to see you, man. He says on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are we that Chris Jones plays Sunday? We talked a little bit about this before the game, the show, and
this is our game. This is our Sunday.
This is. If they would have played last week, I think he would have played, and I think he would not have been on the list this week going in. I think it's just kind of if it's a mind game or if it's just the fact that his knee is just kind of rehabbing, and so they had to explain why he was taking so much time off of not practicing. Man, to be honest with you, I'm not 100% sure. If it was me, it's a 10 he's going to play. But no one really knows why he's even on that list, because like I said, if it was last week, he would have played. That's just plain and simple. He would have played. So it's kind of questioning why he's even on the injury list.
We did talk about it before, and I said if Chris Jones doesn't play, I think the Chiefs are in trouble because he's the guy that needs to seal up the center of this. I know his pass rushing ability is amazing, and I think that's where a lot of people are talking about it. They want to get that interior pressure against Deshaun Watson. But I think even more important than that in this game is he needs to take Carlos Hyde out of it. He needs to make it where the Texans have to become a perimeter running team and needs to take away the interior of the field, because if they're able to run up the gut just consistently, I think Houston's going to try to shorten the game. They're going to try to say, we're going to keep Mahomes on the sideline. We're just going to keep pounding the rock. We're going to play ball control, keep him out of rhythm, because I think that's the best way to beat the Chiefs is you don't let that offense touch the field. Chris Jones needs to play in this game, because if he does not, I don't see that next guy stepping up for Kansas City. I don't see any of the linebackers really making enough of an impact that they can make up for missing that high caliber of a guy. He's the Chiefs' Aaron Donald. Without him, I really worry about the interior of this defensive line.
I mean, don't get me wrong, him not being out there would be huge, but let's not forget this is what every team goes up against the Chiefs and say, we got to run the rock, keep the offense on the sideline and not on the field, and guess what? We won 12 games this year.
And him being there played a big part of that.
And if you sit there and you look at that Houston game, if it wasn't for that fumble, Kansas City wins that game. Kansas City wins that game without that fumble.
But there are a lot of those moments where it's, if not for this play, my team wins. A lot of close games like that.
My point is that we all know that everyone's going to run on Kansas City.
And that's the game plan. But who stops it? And my point is, it's Chris Jones.
Sometimes we don't stop it.
I know. But my point is, without it, it gets worse. We'll see. I don't know.
They got to outshoot us. And that's the plain and simple. They got to outshoot us, and they got to be able to stop us, and they got to create turnovers. And hopefully, when it comes down to it, Mahomes and company don't create turnovers. This is something that they got to stop. And I think even if we do a couple 3-and-outs, we have the power on the opposite side of the ball to keep up the score. Don't get me wrong. I want Chris Jones out there. It's not even really the run game. I want him in the passing defense because he can put his hand up there. He does a lot of tip passes. He creates a lot of sacks.
Oh, the interior pressure is amazing because it forces
those quarterbacks to scramble. But don't get me wrong. We need him there. But really, when you talk about linebackers, it's Hitchenson's job. He's the one that's got to be stopping. If Jones is not there, Hitchens has to step up, and he has to be that force in the middle.
So whatever the number is on Carlos Hyde, then, if it's on Hitchenson, should I take the over? Is that what you're telling me? If you're not worried about Chris Jones in the run defense?
No, I am. I'm just...
Well, here's the thing. I think it becomes a lot easier to outshoot Kansas City when you're able to control the clock. You can shorten the game. And specifically a team coming off of a bye that might have a little bit of rust on them, especially with a young quarterback, because I think we forget a lot of times because Mahomes has been as good as he's been, that he is still a young quarterback. Yes, he's had success in the postseason that a lot of young quarterbacks haven't yet, but I think him taking a week off and then you're able to control the clock only hurts Kansas City. This is what Kansas City needs to do if they just want to dominate this game. They're going to need someone like Chris Jones, I think. As for whether he's going to play or not, I think it's a 9.3. You ask me, 1 out of 10, he's going to play in this game. To me, I know he's on the injury report. If you're questionable on the injury report, I think they're going to be fine.
Well, Jason also says the rumor was a locker room basketball game.
Which, wouldn't that be terrible?
That'd be the worst, Jason.
Andrew Luck level bad luck where he hurts himself in the offseason snowboarding and is never right again.
I want to get back to some of these other comments. I didn't mean to ignore them. Cody says the Niners have a better secondary than the Saints. I promise I'll be part of the show in a second. I'm off, but I promise at some point I'll get there.
I think we're arguing semantics, though. I even if you can say that as a group the 49ers are better, I mean, I like Lattimore more than I like Sherman, even though Sherman's been very good this year. I think Quincy Gardner-Johnson has been a very good rookie as a safety for them. They brought in Janoris Jenkins. I know Eli Apple hasn't played towards the end, but I don't think he's particularly great. I think the Saints have players in the secondary.
I just think the Niners are playing better as a team. I wouldn't say that the Niners have a better secondary than the Saints. On paper, you have to give to the Saints. You have to, right?
Yeah, I think it's
Jenkins,
close. I think
Lattimore,
it's close because I
Sherman
still
was
think
good. If this was a Sherman
I think
5 years
Sherman
ago,
still is good. He is good when he shows up.
Okay,
and
let
it's
me
not all the time.
Let me rephrase that. Sherman is not the top of his
game. He's not the best corner in the league anymore.
Him 5 years ago, we'd be talking about something
We'd be like,
different.
well, now you don't have half the field. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, again, I think even though it's important to look at the 49ers and say, yes, they do that, I think more than that, they have a better defensive line. With all those first overall picks or whatever, top 3 guys on this defensive line, they're going to be able to make an impact against this Vikings line that's still rebuilt, even though they had a much better year than last year. This is the challenge. I think you have to keep guys like Nick Bosa and Solomon Thomas and DeForest Buckner out of the backfield and just stop them from wrecking everything you try to do. Because last week we saw the Vikings go in and say, it needs to be Dalvin Cook. We need Dalvin Cook involved in this game. That is going to get even harder this week, I think, because this 49ers front, especially with Quan Alexander, the linebacker, coming back, who is a run-stopping specialist, this is going to be a lot harder team to run against than the Saints were. And the Saints weren't easy.
Yeah, no doubt. John, good to see you, man. I'm glad you could join us from Galveston, Texas. He says he loves the show, man. We appreciate the love, and we're glad you're here. Jacob, good to see you, man. John also gives his wins. He says the Chiefs, the Vikings, the Ravens, and the Packers. That's who he's picking.
No love for my boys. That's okay. You know what? I want to go into this one an underdog.
He's actually going the opposite. He's going to pick 3 home teams and 1 road team.
And Jeremy did the same thing. He said road teams will go 3-1 this week. He says it'll flip-flop from last week, and the home teams will win. But one team has a chance on the road, and it's going to be, and then he put an ellipses, and I lost his other comment, so I don't know who it's going to be. And the answer is Titans, because you want to respect the AFC South. Or maybe Texans. I guess that would work for him, too. But still, I don't know where he's going with that. But I'll say this. I think, yes, last week was a bit of an aberration where the road teams had a tendency to win. Part of it was the Eagles were underpowered and had the injury to their quarterback. I'm not trying to kneecap any Eagles fans that were like, man, we were close in that game, because that was a lot closer than it should have been with Josh McCown.
Yeah.
But do I see that happening again where 3 road teams could walk away with a win this week? That's tall order. Maybe the Seahawks I like, because, again, they differ in style so much from the Packers. Don't love them, but I do like that matchup. The Vikings, again, kind of the same thing where I don't love them, but I think this test is even harder than the Saints were for them. And I picked the Saints last time. I'm going to pick against the Vikings again. Spoiler alert. I'm going 49ers here. I don't know. It's probably he's probably thinking Texans, but I hope he's thinking Titans.
Chris, good to see you. He says go Colts, but all we know is it's Seattle's year. All he knows is it's Seattle's year.
Did it look like Seattle's year when they barely beat Josh McCown, though?
I don't know.
Like, outside of a clowny cheap shot, did they even beat the Eagles with a healthy, I almost said Nick Foles, with Carson Wentz? I don't know. I mean, that game was rough. But every game for Seattle is rough, so who knows?
Ken, good to see you.
Maybe he's right. Maybe they win every game 17-13.
My dad, good to see you. He says, are we going to talk about Kansas City tonight? Already have a little bit. We will again, for sure.
Chris, you say I talk about my team too much.
Chris says, or Chris gave us his wins. He says Vikings, Baltimore, Kansas City, and Seattle.
I like it, kind of, except my team's not on that list too, but I like it. The Vikings is probably the sexy pick for an upset, right? Maybe Seattle too. Maybe the NFC is more ripe for its upsets because those matchups look like they're much better on paper. But I don't know, man. It's been 20 days since the Ravens have played. 20 days since their starters have played.
Justin, good to see you. Michael, good to see you. Matt, good to see you. Justin says the Seattle Seahawks are gone 0-8 in the last 8 games at Lambeau. Let's keep it going. Go, Pack, go.
Justin says, let's get this man some milk. There have been a lot of people picking against the Packers. Is that the team that's most likely to be upset by you this weekend?
I think the Packers team is the most doubted team in the playoffs left. They doubt the strength of this team. There's a lot of doubt around their defense. There's a lot of doubt in the play of Aaron Rodgers and how he's been kind of not Aaron Rodgers-esque this year. So I can see why a lot of people are doubting him, but I wouldn't be so quick to doubt him in a game like this against Seattle, who really honestly could have lost that Philly game if that was Carson Wentz playing instead of Josh McCown.
More on top of that, I said they're going to run the ball. But then again, look at their running backs. They've signed Marshawn Lynch, and they have Robert Turbin, who obviously has not looked like he's that good of a running back either. This is a team that is missing 3 starting running backs, or 3 guys higher than what they have right now on the depth chart. If they had Chris Carson, I'd be like, I like the Seahawks this week.
Yeah.
Without Chris Carson, without even Rashad Penny, I'm starting to pump the brakes a little bit. And I'm like, they didn't look like a good running team against Philadelphia. And I know Philadelphia has Fletcher Cox, who wrecked that game, just destroyed him. But even though the Packers are a little weak, do you think that they could still do the same thing on the defensive interior? And I know we're going to talk about all this, but that Seahawks offensive line, especially in the interior with the guards and the center, did not look ready for the Seahawks at all. Can Green Bay do the same thing?
I don't know. I don't know.
The answer is yes.
I don't want to get into it yet because we have so many more games until then.
Fair enough. All right, let's go back to the first one. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I picked 49ers. You know, I'm out in front of the ball. I'm not afraid. I'm out here giving my picks away. What about you? Can the 49ers win this game, or is this going to be another upset for the Vikings?
I think the Vikings got issues. I think with Adam Thielen injury, I know they're saying he's going to play. He's got stitches on his ankle from an injury during practice. You got Diggs, who was banged up, didn't practice some of this week. They just played a real tough game against the Saints. Who else knows what kind of injuries these guys are dealing with? Cuts, bruises, soreness. I get it's been a week. I get it's playoff time, but guess who's fresh? Guess who's ready to roll? It's these 49ers. And every time that this 49ers team has been doubted, they come up and play every game real tough. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they lost a few games this year, but this was the number 1 seed. This is considered the best team in the NFC. And every time we talked about it, we're like, the NFC is the best side of the NFL. 100%. So you're talking
week 1 to week 17, we've been consistently saying that.
And this is the number 1 team out of that side. So it's no offense, Vikings fans, but you might stay close for like a little bit, but those receivers are not healthy, which I don't think they're going to be, even if they play. I think this Niners team is going to keep your offense on the side of the ball, and I don't care who it is running the ball. They're going to run all over your guys' defense, and this is going to be the 49ers game. It's going to stay close to first half, and then it's going to get out of hand in the second.
Good to see you, Frank. Good to see you, Ken. He says it's nice to see us again. He's saying Kansas City's going down, but if I remember right, Ken is a Raiders fan, so maybe there's a little bit of personal investment in that statement.
Just a little bit.
Not 100%. Michael says Niners 31-24, and I'm almost with him. I think this is going to be more of a slugfest. I know you said this will be a challenge for the Vikings, but I think this is going to look a lot like last week, where the team that they're playing against may not look 100% sharp. Maybe this isn't the best 49ers team we've seen all season long, and the Vikings are going to take advantage of that because, they played last week. They've been playing for their lives for a while. They were playing for a playoff spot later than a lot of teams were in the NFC. I think the Vikings, the difference is going to be they're not going to have the success with Dalvin Cook. The 49ers should be better at stopping the run. And when you're forcing Kirk Cousins to throw in a primetime game, which, again, guy doesn't seem to really respond to very well. I know he had a good game against the Saints, but still not the best. Adam Thielen hurting himself in practice. Stephon Diggs demanding the ball and them saying, oh, well, even though we're in a playoff game and he hasn't been successful so far, let's force it to him. There's just a lot not to love about this Vikings team. But I still think they keep it close. I still think this is another one of those games that comes down to the last couple minutes. I think the 49ers score late. And maybe they're behind. Maybe it's, instead of 31-24, maybe it's 31-26. They go behind and have to come back and score a late touchdown. I think this is going to be a great game. I said the same thing about the Saints. I said that was going to be game of the week. And you could argue it was with those, as good as those teams were going to overtime. I just don't think the Vikings have it in them to go to overtime twice in a row, go from those emotional highs from last week, and keep up the same intensity. I think this week they come up just a little bit short.
Well, Jacob says the Vikings will win 28-17. And, of course, we know Michael's going for him. He says, yes, baby, we are number 1, going for the Niners. Eric says, go Pack, go. And Ray says, go Pack, go. Already rooting for the
Packers
Pack.
Nation has shown up.
Yes, they
Welcome
have.
in. We are going to get to them. They are last because we're going in order of what the NFL is going to show them. But we're going to talk intensively about that game, just like every one of these.
Well, kind of my last little comments, and you know, not that you stole the thunder, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but you bring a lot into that when you said Quan Alexander's back. This guy was their heart and soul of this defense. You saw their secondary kind of step up when the loss of him, like Richard Sherman, kind of became the vocal leader. Bring Quan Alexander back and is going to make
but
a
I think
huge difference in here.
And it is. And they should only get better. But I think the most impressive thing the 49ers have done is even with him out, they've still played good defense. And it hasn't been the same.
That's what I'm saying.
It hasn't been the same through the
exactly,
stretch.
But you bring him back in, you're getting that verbal leader, you're getting that physical leader on the field. And then Richard Sherman and everyone else around him, because I don't want to ignore it. Nick Bosa has been playing well. Armstead has been playing well. DeForest Buckner's been playing well. Even Solomon Thomas has played well this year.
Better, right? And that's what we wanted to see.
And you're also bringing back D Ford, which, like I said, is going to be a huge addition
Yes.
to the pass rush. It's going to put a lot of pressure on Kirk Cousins, which we all know when you put pressure on Kirk Cousins, he does not deliver that ball properly and accurately. And when you do that to a team that can create turnovers like the 49ers have, this is where I'm coming in with the issue. Do I like Dalvin Cook? I think Dalvin Cook might have a heyday in this because that's who they're going to feed the ball to, because I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to have enough time to wait for Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs to get open because they're so banged up. Maybe they're not as quick and fresh like the 49ers secondary is.
Now Jacob is taking the Vikings to win 28-17. Again, if they do pull it off, I think it's going to be another nail biter. But you might be right. Maybe they can pull a little bit of distance between this one. Justin says he can't lie. He hopes the Vikings win this and that the 49ers defensive line jumped all over the Packers when they faced him. He'd rather face a division rival than face those linemen again. And I think that's the point where we're making. That is the group that's the difference maker for the 49ers. Even though we talked about the secondary, we talked about what the running game can do, and I think the running game will be important for them. This is about, can you keep these defensive linemen out of Kirk Cousins' face? I've talked about it forever. Last season, when everyone was ready to hang Kirk Cousins and off with his head, get him out of here, he's not a good quarterback, and we spent all that money on him, all the jokes came in, all the memes came in. What did I say, Drew? I said, you can't have a pocket passer that is under pressure like this and have him succeed.
Yeah.
Because Kirk Cousins isn't dodging anybody. Kirk Cousins is going to stand still and he's going to throw the ball.
True.
Is he going to be able to stand still in this game? That's the question that the Vikings offensive line needs to answer with a yes if they're going to have any hope here. And I think the answer is probably not.
I don't think so.
It's going to be a challenge, and that's especially because they signed Josh Klein, former Titan, terrible guard. But he played better this year. So, again, I think it comes down to, can the 49ers defensive line create enough havoc to upset Kirk Cousins? The answer to that should be yes. Most likely will be yes. But you never know, because you got Nick Bosa, who's young. Rookie player. You have Solomon Thomas, again, second year. Even DeForest Buckner has only been there for a couple years. You don't have a ton of experienced guys because the 49ers have been this bad. Maybe coming off a bye, they lay a dud. Maybe they don't come out as sharp as they need to, and this is the game where the Vikings jump out way early, and then the 49ers can't close the gap.
I have a weird feeling, and usually my feelings are wrong, but I have a weird feeling this is going to be the most uneven game at the end of it, all said and done.
More uneven than the Titans and Ravens, where the Ravens have like an 11-point line now or something like that.
Well, the Chiefs have a 10, but yes. Yes.
Terrible. Just terrible. No respect for the AFC.
Let's go on to the next game.
Let's do it. You got to tell me who you're picking. You said 49ers?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, we'll move on to the next game. Let's talk Titans-Ravens, because this game, to me, is going to be incredibly interesting. Because, like you said, great point you made before the show. Absolutely nobody anywhere is taking the Titans. Do we get the dark horse effect, where the Titans come in just totally unlauded and maybe they surprise them?
Except here, locally, you hear a lot of Titans fans say
but even then, they say, if, but, and maybe this happens, the Titans can win.
Oh, man.
Do they even need to play this game, or do we just let the Ravens go on?
Just move the Ravens on.
Okay.
You could do 30 days without playing football. Don't worry about it. Keep going.
I think worry about it a lot, because you have a young quarterback. Mark Ingram is likely not to play, and let's face it, this run game took a massive step forward with a guy like Mark Ingram. I still respect Gus Edwards. I think he's a good player, but I don't know that he's a dominator like Mark Ingram is. I think there's a reason the Ravens were so interested in signing a running back when they had effective running backs already. It's because they wanted to upgrade with him. Not if he does not play this game, and it seems unlikely that he will. I think the Ravens are actually in more trouble for establishing the run than they should be. If they could run with Mark Ingram and they had Lamar Jackson, I'd say done and dusted, Drew. My team's dead in the water. It was a good run. We had a good chance. But I think even with Gus Edwards in there, you could focus more on Lamar Jackson, and that's incredibly important when you're playing a team like this.
I don't think you sleep on Gus Edwards. He's not as dynamic as Mark Ingram. I'll give you that.
There it is.
But Gus Edwards is a dirty runner, and not the sense that he's playing dirty. He does
the dirty work.
He's not afraid of contact.
Right.
He's gonna run in between the tackles. He's not gonna sidestep and miss it. He's gonna hit it every time. And when you have a running back, he is running back. When you have a quarterback like Lamar Jackson, you don't need that second guy that's gonna be fancy in the backfield. You need a guy that can get those dirty yards. Is it a huge loss that Mark Ingram doesn't play? Absolutely. You cannot take a playmaker like that with his ability off the field and expect to be okay with it. I mean, and I don't mean to bring up my team, but when you look at all the receiving options and you take away Tyreek Hill, you see Kansas City's offense kind of stutter back a little bit.
Yes.
Because when you take a dynamic playmaker like Mark Ingram off the field, you are going to feel it. There's no doubt about it. Does that help the Titans have a closer chance of winning this game if Mark Ingram plays? Or doesn't play? Yes.
Maybe it goes from 11 points to 8.
Yeah. but there is definitely a change in that. Ken says it's such a weird group in this round of the playoffs. I mean, Tom Brady, who he calls the GOAT, Ken calls the GOAT, is gone. And we have people like Tennessee and Houston. It's like, what the heck is going on?
Tennessee has been one of the 4 teams that's had a winning record in the past 4 years.
And Houston's
Seahawks, Chiefs, Patriots, Titans. Only 4 teams that have winning record in the past 4 years. Titans,
and Houston,
even though they haven't had the postseason success, have been in and around the playoffs for the past 4 years. So put a little respect on their name, okay? A little bit of respect.
And Houston's been around in the playoffs for a while now.
But I'm with you. But you could pretty much sum that up by saying, man, you know what? Roethlisberger's not here, and neither is Brady. I mean, now that Manning's retired, right? Can we just say that? Outside of those 3 guys, the only other guy to make a Super Bowl for the AFC has been Joe Flacco in like the past 17 years. So, yeah, it's weird because every one of those guys is out. Somebody else is actually going to have to go to the Super Bowl for the AFC for once.
Michael is taking the Titans in this game.
Michael, that's what I'm talking about.
But
See, I think he had me last week. I think he had the Titans last week, and he was right. I'm hoping his faith is as well placed this week as it was last week.
Justin says the Titans defense slow down Lamar Jackson? Can anybody slow him down?
I will like it better if Jayon Brown plays because the Titans have 2 very athletic, very rangy middle linebackers in Rashad Evans and Jayon Brown. But again, he hurt his shoulder in the Patriot game. He was the guy that they stopped the game twice in a row early in the game, and then they pulled him right after that. If he plays, and he is questionable, if he plays, it'll be an easier prospect, but it's never going to be easy here. I think gone are the days where you can pull the San Diego, where we're just going to put 7 defensive backs out there. Even though the Titans have the safeties to do that. They can put Dane Cruikshank and Amani Hooker, who have both played really well at times at safety, put those guys in and try to go to a lighter package. The difference this year has been this Ravens offensive line has just eaten everybody up that's tried to go small against them. You have Mark Ingram that's just power running the ball. Gus Edwards can power run as well. So you almost have to make a choice. Do we go light and fast to try to keep up with Lamar Jackson, or do we try to go heavy and slow down this running attack? And you're almost damned either way because they're going to beat you with whatever else you try.
You got to put your big guys on their offensive linemen, make them keep on with it, and you got to allow your secondary and your linebackers to make plays.
The question is,
but the problem
can the Titans do that? They need to have a great game out of Jarrell Casey. They need to have a great game out of Jeffrey Simmons, who again, rookie. Yeah. That they're going to be massively important. But with guys like Marshall Yanda on the other side, I just don't know that that's enough. I think it comes down to the linebackers.
I don't really think it's the issue with your defensive line. I think that they can kind of keep the offensive line of the Ravens busy. I think the problem is Lamar Jackson is such a quick change of direction guy. The question is, can your defense handle that quick change and make pure tackles? Because those arm tackles with Lamar Jackson are not going to work.
Exactly. And the question is, can you swarm enough? Can you get enough bodies to him where he's not going to be able to just beat one guy one-on-one in space and then go break off a 40-yard run and just gouge you?
Exactly.
I think the Titans are going to be incredibly invested in that. I think that's going to be, plan 1, 2, and 3. What do we do to do it? The only bright side is they are playing with defensive coordinator Dean Pease, who, again, longtime Raven, played with coached for them for, I think it's 20-plus years, 30 years. I forget what the actual number is, but he was there forever. All-time great defensive coordinator. He knows a lot of these guys. They've been on the roster for a long time. Hopefully, he knows something that the rest of us don't see, and he's going to have a creative game plan cooked up for him, because he did against the Patriots. Yeah. I didn't love it. I was screaming the whole time at my TV, but when he rushed 3 guys in every play and dared Tom Brady, hey, go ahead and beat us with your arm if you can. Normally, in the past, everyone would have been like, what the hell are you doing with Tom Brady? This year, it worked.
It did.
Held him to 13 points. I hope it's another creative game plan like that.
Perry, I don't know if we said welcome, but glad you're here, man. He said at least Mahomes' Magic Crunch is a better idea than Walmart's Baby Shark cereal. He says, yes,
sounds like he's speaking from experience.
He saw it.
But did you try it? How do you know?
Was there marshmallows?
That's what we need to know. Pressing question.
Well, the only reason I haven't eaten this is because there's no marshmallows in it. Plain and simple.
You don't like marshmallows? No Lucky Charms for you?
No. I need marshmallows in my cereal.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Ken says the Ravens all the way now in the AFC with Brady gone. Again, that's the sexy pick, but anytime you have a young quarterback, I just don't love the idea of resting him for 20 days. What happens if Lamar Jackson comes out and turns the ball over 4 times because he's young and inexperienced? Young guys do it all the time. On the other hand, Tannehill, inexperienced postseason quarterback, looked every bit of that last week against the Patriots. The question is going to be, for me, I think, can you force Lamar Jackson to try to beat you with his arm? And if you can do that, will he make the mistakes? That's going to be the biggest question in this game here. I think the Titans should be okay with Derrick Henry, even though I think the Ravens are going to be selling out to stop the run. I think Tannehill should have a better game than we saw last week against the Patriots. But the real question is going to be, what can this defense do against the Ravens offense?
I'm sorry, I have comments.
The Browns beat them, so maybe the Titans can too. How about that? It was a long time ago, but the Browns did beat this team.
Yeah, but it was just...
Right after the Titans smashed them. Let me remind you.
It was a real bad game for the Ravens.
Sure.
It was a real bad game.
And they're due, right? They played
And Nick Chubb...
They've been on a 12-game
win.
Yeah, 12-game
Nick
win
Chubb
streak.
went nuts, which, I guess, realistically, you have the guy to make that happen.
Hopefully. Then again, he just carried the ball 35 times, and I imagine he's going to be a little sore, having only 7 days off between these games.
The rumor is that at the end of the fourth quarter, the Patriots defensive players did not want to tackle him anymore. And they wanted.
And you got Earl Thomas talking smack about it. Yo, you're going to face guys that want to tackle you more. Relax, okay? Relax, Earl Thomas.
How far, realistically, I'm asking you this. I'm not talking about the matchups, okay? I don't want you to talk about the Ravens. I don't want you to talk about if you're facing the Texans or you're facing the Chiefs. How far can Derrick Henry get you this year on his shoulders? Do you believe in this guy? Do you believe this guy can keep running 30, 35 times and you guys win a Super Bowl?
With his size and the way he avoids contact, yes. If you ran like Marshawn Lynch, I'd say no. Again, we're talking about short-term variance, Drew. We need 3 more.
That's what I'm asking.
We need 3 more.
I'm just asking.
Is that entirely likely where I'm saying, that he couldn't just run out of gas? No. But let's say they face Kansas City next week. Again, not a highly vaunted run defense, right? I think that would be the best thing for the Titans.
We hit hard, but we don't stop the run.
But that's my point. I think that would be the best thing for the Titans, where instead of it being 3.5 or 4 yards and you're having success and it's got to be ugly yards, kind of like the Patriots was a lot of times, maybe it's like 6 or 7 or 8 yards, and then you get to second and short and we're able to throw.
Yeah.
I think this Ravens defense is going to be another tough test against what was just the number 1 ranked defense when it comes to yardage last week. It's going to be another slugfest. And the question, which I think is totally viable from you, is how long can Derrick Henry do this? Again, when you're that size and you don't put your shoulders down like Marshawn Lynch and you're not just inviting contact, you're not going to take the same punishment as a guy that, like I said, like Marshawn Lynch or Marion Barber of the past that just run into guys do, and they get tired. I think Derrick Henry, if you ever watch him get tackled, he's not the guy that just puts the shoulder down and run through you. He tries to like move and shift and put it, and you wind up wrapping up his thighs where he's not taking the same kind of hit.
Jeff, good to see you, man. Glad you could join us. Let's make our picks, man. It's time. It's time to make the picks. I
don't mind going first again. I'm going to go, even though I am a Titans fan, it's very, very important to not be romantic about your team. I'm going to go with the Ravens. I think it's going to be closer than people think. I would take the Titans to cover on that, 10 or 11 point line. But I think the Ravens are going to win this one by 3 or 4. And I think we're going to get to the end of the season. We're going to say the Titans had a good run. They just weren't ready to beat the best team in the AFC just yet. They need a couple more pieces before they're ready for that. I think Derrick Henry's going to have an impact, but like you said, last week might take a toll, and it won't be the same as a fresh Derrick Henry going into this game. I think Tannehill will have a good game. He'll throw for 260 yards. But at the end of the day, the Ravens running / passing attack, it's almost like a whole team RPO where you try to stop the edge run with Lamar Jackson. We're just going to run up the gut with you and just pound the rock on you, or vice versa. I'm going to go with the Ravens. I think the Ravens pull it off at home, rested. I'll say they'll get it, but I think it's going to look ugly early, and then the Ravens kind of close it out towards the end of the game, rather than everyone just saying the Titans are going to be dead by 7 minutes into the first quarter.
Chris, good to see you, man. Glad you could join us. Ken says Derrick Henry can carry maybe one more game, and then his body won't be able to take it.
And I think that's almost why they'd rather face Kansas City, because they're not going to face the same run defense that they would in Houston.
Cody, don't worry about it ever being long. I'll let Jake read that. I'm going to make my pick real quick. I don't think Ryan Tannehill's going to throw for 260 yards. I'd be very surprised even if he hits 200 yards. To be honest, if anything, I'd be putting bets on the fact that this game might be 2 hours and 20 minutes long, all said and done with how much running's going on in this game. I am going to pick the Ravens to win this game, and I don't think it's going to have anything to do with offensive scoring. I think both defenses will go ahead and do a lot of bend but not break scenario. I think it's going to go right down to kicking, and one of the best teams that have been kicking this year have been the Ravens, and one of the worst teams that have been kicking this year.
Ever. You can put the ever title on that. They've been the worst team kicking ever.
Are the Titans, and I think that's really what it's going to come down to, and you could trust in a leg like Justin Tucker. I think this is an opportunity for you guys to win this game. Yes, Brett Kern is a great punter, and he's going to give the Titans every opportunity to hold the Ravens back and not give good field advantage. But I think the special teams kind of has to lean towards the Ravens. That kicking game, Justin Tucker, to be honest with you, I'd be very surprised if both these teams get into double-digit scoring. I know everyone's saying high scoring in this.
9-6?
Yeah, dude, I said both teams. It wouldn't surprise me if it was like
12-9.
Yeah.
Or 48
I'm
Ravens, 12
I
or
think
9
this game
Titans.
is going to be a defensive affair, and I think you're going to see the rust of the offense with the Ravens, and I think the Ravens and John Harbaugh are going to have a great scheme against the Titans in this offense that they're going to be putting out. I think this is going to be a low-scoring affair, and I think the Ravens are going to win it by kicking.
I think it'll be over quick, but I think there might be some points on the board. But I could see it.
Well, I've already said two things that are probably not going to happen, so that's just how I feel.
Can we just agree that the Titans kicker is going to outshoot Justin Tucker?
The Niners are going to destroy the Vikings, and it's going to be the most lopsided affair this weekend.
And the other game's going to be 13-9.
The other game's going to be super close, and I'll be surprised if both teams
Can I take a beer bet on that both teams get to 10 points in this game?
Sure, man. Let's do a beer bet.
All right, fair enough. Cody says, sorry this is long, but he's saying analysis the other day about how to stop Baltimore. First, they were saying that the 3-4 technique with the 7 technique defensive end and an outside linebacker is the most effective. Do we agree with that? I think the most important thing is you need to win your individual matchups, and when you have an offensive line, I think a 4-3 can beat them too. You just have to have the outside linebacker crash, or you set a spy in the middle that's going to wait and kind of follow with Lamar Jackson. The problem is those guys aren't athletic enough. That's the point.
There's not a spy in the NFL that can really keep up with Lamar Jackson.
Well, I think some linebackers can do a better job than others. And I'm not saying you just totally take him out of the game. Nobody's going to totally take him out of the game. But you can limit it, I think with more athletic linebackers. My point here is I think you can still do it with a 43. I don't think it needs to be a 34. Do I like the 34 better? Yes, because you can bring pressure from different angles and confuse a young quarterback that hopefully isn't quite as good at reading defenses as some others. But the biggest point is that I think everyone has lost this season is this offensive line is not losing its matchups. Guys like Marshall Yanda have just been destroying everybody in front of them. Even in that 34 set, when you set those outside linebackers and you rush the 7 gap like you're talking about, they're just going to run up the middle. They're going to learn that, and then they're going to say, you know what's happening? We're winning up the middle, and we're going to run up the middle. It's all about winning your individual matchups in whatever type of defense you want to play, and I just don't see any team that is defensively stout enough, maybe the 49ers, to really just dominate against this Ravens offensive line, which has been hands down the best one in football, even better than the Colts. And the Colts have been fantastic, but this line has been better.
I mean, it's literally you have a wildcat, and you have the option, and then you have the triple option. They pretty much are running a college offense in the NFL, and it's working. And the problem is that you have other defensive side of the ball not staying to their assignments, and that's probably exactly what I'm just blanked out on his name. The Titans head coach Mike Vrabel has been practicing all week long, and I'm sure every NFL coach has been talking about it. You stay where you're supposed to be, and I think the Titans defense with Pease as a defensive coordinator can make this happen. That's why I think this affair is going to be very close scoring. But, man, I'm with you. I mean, you can look at anything you want. Any scheme in the NFL, as long as people do their assignments, is successful in the NFL. That's why you see so much change. Is it a 3-4, a 4-3, a Tampa 2? That's why you see so much change, because if you can get the right personnel and the right players in those positions, which is personnel, I don't know why I just repeated myself, it can succeed. And I think that the Titans, and I've been saying this for a few years now, have a Super Bowl winning defense when they play right. Yeah, they looked like any other team has, vulnerable at times. But this is the playoffs. This is different. Mm-hmm. And they know that. These guys are going to be up to par. The Ravens are going to be up to par. Again, close affair. Ravens win.
Chiefs-Texans. You ready to move on to the second most important game of the week?
Yeah.
Depending who you ask. This is going to be incredibly important for, obviously, whichever team comes out of there, because if you look at the way the Houston Texans played last week, I think even on paper, they had a great game. You look at Deshaun Watson, it looks really good, 240 yards passing. He was 20 of 25. But then when you watch the game, you're like, that was not incredibly impressive. I think Houston needs to be a lot more impressive against this Chiefs team that, even though they're coming off a bye and Andy Reid is very good off the bye, might have a little bit of rust on him. If it's going to happen for Houston, I think it's got to be early. I think you got to punch him in the mouth. You got to score a couple quick points, and then you got to slow that game down, like I kind of talked about before, where maybe you're not going to let them respond. We saw the Patriots do that to them last year in the AFC Championship. They scored a lot early and then slowed the game down as much as possible. And to your point, the Chiefs were one offside play away from beating them anyway. I think that's the best way to beat this Chiefs team. The advantage the Houston Texans have is they rested in Week 17, took their bye week, and then played last week, so they're going to be a lot fresher and a lot more just ready to play, I think, than Kansas City will be right off the jump. If they don't get an early lead, I don't like Houston in this matchup.
Michael says this will be a high-scoring game. I actually think it will be the highest-scoring game of this weekend. This game makes me nervous, and it only makes me nervous because historically we've done so well against the Houston Texans in the playoffs. 4 years ago we beat them 30-0. I don't think that's going to happen in this game. I think Deshaun Watson is young, but he's veteran. He's veteran in these games. He's used to big games. You can say the same thing about Patrick Mahomes.
Same draft class as Mahomes.
I mean, you can say the exact same thing, but he started a year before. He got a full year, and then Mahomes came in the second year. So, in a sense, he has more games under his belt.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's really going to come down to, and this is funny to talk about, is the big plays. It's going to be about the 25, the 30-yard, the 40-yard big plays where you're talking about who can do more. I think both these teams can score on opposing defenses. I don't see Kansas City's defense keeping up what it's done these last couple of weeks, even though I call them the most complete team in the NFL. I think that the Texans are going to come out and put up points against this team. I believe Hopkins is still probably the best receiver in the league, even over Michael Thomas.
See, I'm ready to flip.
Crazy.
I'm ready to flip. I'm like Michael
crazy.
Thomas won it for me.
Yeah, if Drew Brees is throwing in the ball, we might be talking something different too.
Well, we like Deshaun Watson, right? Don't we?
Yeah.
It's not that much different.
Okay. Anyways, moving forward.
It's that much different.
Drew Brees will hold every passing record by the time he decides to retire. He'll hold every single one.
If the Saints stay good, maybe.
No, he'll hold.
But if the Saints don't stay good?
Remember when he wasn't good? He was still throwing 5,000 yards? He'll hold
and they were
every...
like 7 and 9. But now that he's like 40, he might be like, it's not worth it anymore. We're going 7 and 9. Maybe he does. Who knows?
Ken, you nailed it, man. Chiefs make the best big plays in the NFL behind the Ravens, in his opinion. I think that's what it comes down to. I think Kansas City and that high-flying offense, if it's not Tyreek Hill, if it's Nicole Hardman, or if it's Robinson, or if it's Watkins, I get that Kelsey's banged up. I get that Chris Jones is banged up. Kansas City is going to come out and they're going to be able to put points quick. And at some point in time, we're going to put pressure on Deshaun Watson. He's going to turn the ball over because that's what Kansas City does. They're going to allow a lot of points to happen in this game, but they're going to create turnovers when it matters, and that's how they're going to win this game. To be honest, I hate putting scores, but it would not surprise me if the team that wins has 40 and the team that loses has 30.
I think it's going to be lower. That's just usually the way the playoffs shake out because, again, they let those cornerbacks get a little more handsy than they do in the regular season. You get the defenses, not quite so many flags are thrown against them. I usually go with the under, so I would take the under of whatever Drew said, that 70-point kind of line he set. But I do like both these teams' offenses. I think they'll be scoring. I do have some questions on it. Again, Houston didn't look good last week. Right. Maybe they come out and don't look very good in this one. And I think Kansas City with the week off, again, you never know when Russ is going to creep up on a team. Obviously, I still like Kansas City.
It's just a bye week, man.
That's true. That's true.
They played the whole game in Week 17.
And they did, and that's incredibly important. And I like that a lot better than the Ravens sitting all their starters, and then you get to come back with a second or a third-year quarterback and have him not play in forever. Don't like that. But what I do like about the Chiefs in this game specifically is, again, the big playability. They're going to take advantage of a secondary that, even though they looked okay against Josh Allen last week, and they had a couple plays that could have been pick sixes. I mean, they had a couple of them where they just jumped routes and did not get the interception. I just don't see Mahomes making that many mistakes in this one. Even though he's young, and I rail against young quarterbacks in the playoffs all the time, he's been around the block. He's been deep into the playoffs, and I think he's got much better receiving options. I don't think they're going to be in the position to give up those interceptions. I don't think Mahomes is going to make those mistakes that Josh Allen did. I think this is going to be Chiefs relatively easy, but I think this could be slow, where both of these teams just don't quite look right until maybe the second half starts.
And Will Fuller is playing for the Texans so far, though.
That is important, but again, Will Fuller is some games. He puts up 220 yards.
It's not that he puts up points; he just frees up so much options.
He frees up DeAndre Hopkins
and everyone else.
Exactly, and I agree with that. But then again, there's other games where you're like, "Where's Will Fuller?"
On the sideline, hurt.
Or you're like, "Where's Will Fuller?" Not doing anything, just running deep every play, and they're like, "Go ahead and throw it. Go ahead." And he's just magically not involved with the game.
So who are you picking?
I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs win this one. I think it's a lot closer than everyone says. I think this is more like 28-20, 28-21. Again, I think it stays lower scoring than everyone thinks, because whenever every sign points to it's going to be a high-scoring game, always take the under. It's the playoffs, too. Like I said, Kansas City's cornerbacks are going to be interested in holding. Houston's cornerbacks are going to be interested in holding. Both of these teams are going to be holding these receivers.
38-28.
Well, you can't walk it back now. You said 40-plus to 30-plus.
I said 40 to 30 is what I said. I did not say plus.
So now you're walking it back. But that's okay.
2 points. 2-point conversion didn't happen.
All right.
It missed.
Fair enough. Let me read a couple more of these comments and move on to our last game here. Chris says he's so excited tomorrow. Go 49ers. Yeah, man. I think everyone whose team is still in this is sweating bullets, but at the same time, you want to watch them play.
Last week was such a great week of football. I think that this is going to be so much better than last week.
This is usually the best round because the wild card, you get a couple teams that aren't used to being there. Usually AFC Championship or the Championship. Well, I take it back. Usually the Championship round's the best because those are like the two best for each conference. And then you get to the Super Bowl and one's not quite ready
There's
or not at the same level.
There's a lot of teams on the board that have not won Super Bowls.
Exactly. And that, I think, is the best thing about it.
Yeah.
It's been so long for some of these teams that hopefully one of them can just drag away a Super Bowl, i.e. two-tone blue, or if it has to be someone else, the Chiefs.
Thanks, man.
If it has to be someone else.
The Vikings haven't won. Texans haven't won.
Yeah. Seattle and Green Bay, you can both just eliminate
Chiefs have
yourself.
won, but it was in 1969, which I don't think they called it a Super Bowl back then. Yeah, they did. It was Super Bowl II.
Yeah. Well, I think it was 3, right? No, that was Namath.
4?
Namath was 3. It might have been 4.
So 4? I don't know. It wasn't alive. I read it in textbooks.
Back on track. You ready? Let's talk about our last game.
When I say textbooks, i.e. the internet.
So, are you taking the Chiefs then?
I don't know, man. It's been really difficult. Yeah, I'm taking the Chiefs.
All right. Well, let's talk about our last game. I'm going to let you go first. I always go first. It's your turn to go first. What do you think is going to happen in the Seahawks-Packers game? Because I think it's interesting. I think this is one of the matchups that, kind of like I said last week with the Patriots and Titans, I'm not sure what it's going to look like.
Real quick, Michael says he's got to go Niners, Titans, Chiefs, and Seahawks. Chris says they had the first game tomorrow. He's a 49ers fan. Yes. And Ken says it's been the craziest and most shocking wild card he's ever seen. I think this divisional round is going to be way better, man. I really do. Talking about the final game of this weekend, you got the Seahawks going on the road to play the Packers in Lambeau Field. The temperature is going to be around low 20s, mid 20s, so it's not going to be absolutely freezing. So it's not going to really favor one team or the other. I think they're both used to playing in the cold. It's not that 13 or 10 degrees that I'd say, okay, the Packers, this is where they live for. Like I said it before, I think the Packers are the most underrated media hyped or non-hyped team going into this weekend, where they talk about how the defense isn't as good as what a lot of people consider it to be. And this offense with Aaron Rodgers is very un-Aaron Rodgers. I believe in the Smith brothers. I believe that Darius Smith is definitely the better of the two out of Preston and him. I think they're going to be able to create a lot of pressure where it's going to make Russell Wilson get out of the pocket and make throws. But Russell Wilson does really well at that. He's one of the better ones in the league that consistently gets out of the pocket, makes great throws down the field. There's another guy that a lot of people don't talk about, and that's Martinez.
Mm-hmm.
The tackling
Blake Martinez,
mission.
absolutely.
And he is a guy that not a lot of tackles get through his hands. And if he can stop Marshawn Lynch and their run game, which is going to be very lacking in the Seahawks, because I'm sorry, you can't put You can't put Chris Carson's on IR and bring in Marshawn Lynch, who's been
46-year-old Marshawn Lynch, who was just doing tequila shots in the Oakland Raiders parking lot week 17 or 16 or whatever.
Eating bags of Skittles. It's not going to work. That being said, I like Russell Wilson. Let me rephrase that. I love Russell Wilson. I think he does great things on the field and off the field. The way he plays the game, the way he's quiet, the way he's an absolute professional, the way he makes everyone else around him. This is his team. They are in the division round because of Russell Wilson. I think he makes other players look better than what they really are, a.k.a. Tyler Lockett. I know you're going to love that comment because you always...
I agree with that. That doesn't make him a bad player, but is he elevated by Russell Wilson? Of course.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Yes, of course.
DK Metcalf
It's
looks
synergy,
great.
right? He makes Russell Wilson look better. Russell Wilson makes him look better. I'm on board.
I just knew you'd like that
I'm
comment.
still on board.
I think this is where he's going to find...
Don't worry, I'll stop you when you say something wrong.
I think this is where he's going to find the wall. I think if this was in Seattle with the 12th man behind him, I think Seattle wins this game. But being in Lambeau, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to find his magic, and all you cheeseheads out there are going to be ecstatic about it. They win this game. It's going to be a tough fight game. It's going to come down to the very end. I'm not saying last-minute score wins it, but it might be the last score, kind of hold them on maybe the 10-yard line, and they missed a touchdown, and the Packers win this game.
Couple more of these comments here. Ken says he doesn't want to hear anyone, and thank you someone else for saying something, so I lost that one. He doesn't want to hear anyone else say the Patriots cheat anymore because the refs didn't help them win at home. What they did do is let them get away with a lot of handsy play against those Titan receivers. There's a reason that, not only because the Titans didn't try to throw, but there's a reason that the Titans only threw for 72 yards. And the fact of the matter is, if you go back and watch the tape, they were all over those Titan receivers. To say that they didn't help out a little bit, or that wouldn't have been called differently if that was in New England, I don't think is true. That, number one. And number two, weren't they just caught spying on Cincinnati like week 16, 15? I think they were doing the spying, and then they played them the week after. Look, I don't think it's fair to say that any of that's buried. But I get what you're saying. It definitely, for what everyone was expecting, was not just a super lopsided game with the refs.
Oh, yeah,
In fact, they just didn't call a lot of penalties at all. The only pass interference I saw was the one where Tajay Sharp got literally bent in half, Bane style, like they broke him over his knee in midair before he could touch the ball. Outside of that, they didn't call a whole lot of pass interference or anything like that. They called a couple holds, a couple false starts. They called a couple procedural stuff, but all that stuff happened.
Yeah.
And for the rest, they let the boys play.
To not call them cheaters, they're still cheaters, man. They're cheaters. Cody says, didn't the Chiefs win the Super Bowl right before the undefeated Dolphins? No. 1969, the Chiefs won. The undefeated Dolphins were 74.
And Perry says the Super Bowl wasn't official until after the official merger, but they did count it. He says this one is 54. He said it should be considered 50 of the modern era. The Vikings and Chiefs was the last unofficial Super Bowl, so to speak. Yeah, but I think they kind of retroactively worked it back in because I think, believe it or not, Bud Adams, former Titans owner, I think negotiated the deal to have the AFL and the NFL play them and count it as
too,
that.
Buddy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think Ralph Wilson was part of it too.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that, again, it goes back in time, but because the NFL recognizes it, we do too. And it's one of those things that, they played each other, even though it's not official because the league's not all together and, it was the best team from one league playing the other. They did it and they count it, so we do too.
Cody did, what's the young running back for Seattle?
Oh, it is, dang it, Cody.
It's right on the tip of my tongue.
He's looked okay. And I know we talked about Marshawn Lynch, and I can't think of what the kid's name is right now. I'm drawing a blank. But the moral of the story is that going to be the same as Chris Carson, who has been quietly one of the better running backs in the NFL for Seattle? I know the fumbles are up there. Everyone talks about that a lot. Outside of that, Chris Carson's been a pretty dominant running back. I just don't see them on their fifth guy. And more importantly than that, I don't see them matching up offensive line-wise with the Packers well enough to get the job done. I know last week we saw Fletcher Cox just absolutely mauled this offensive line. That's not going to happen in Green Bay, but I don't think it's going to be enough that an inexperienced running back is going to go in there and take this game over like he would need to. I said last week that I liked this matchup. Watching that Eagles game, I said it beforehand. I said I think the Seahawks are the best chance of knocking them off over the Eagles. But I don't love them now because after watching that game, I was like, this offensive line with its injuries and the guys they have playing in the interior are not ready to beat a team that's 13-3 like the Packers.
Yeah.
Even though that's been their weakness.
Ken, no, Chris Carson was one that got hurt. Ken also says Russell Wilson is a scary thing in the playoffs. Literally the first ballot Hall of Famer. In his opinion, in the playoffs is something special and really unseen.
Multiple Super Bowl, not even just wins, but appearances. Yeah, he's going.
Yeah, no. We talk about him all the time, Ken, and I know you know this, and you know that I'm very
Homer, by the way, Homer.
Homer, that's what it was. Yeah, I wanted to call him Holmes, but I was like, well, that's not. Everyone's like, you talk about Mahomes.
Yes.
But anyways, moving on. I speak very highly of them, and Russell Wilson and Tyler Lockett. I like the way those guys approach the game and play, but no doubt about it, when you talk about Russell Wilson, and we've said this so many times, but if you play in any other system, you talk about Kyle Shanahan's system, you talk about Kansas City's system, you'd be talking about the number one passer and most probably a prolific passer of this generation. If he played
Doug Peterson, anyone that throws the ball a lot would
But he
make Russell
plays-
Wilson throw him. I think the Titans would be like, he's good enough that we're going to throw. I mean, the Seahawks, the fact that they just run as much as they do.
Pete Carroll loves running the ball, plain and simple. He loves
that's
running
fine.
the ball, and he loves playing tough defense.
And that's probably why they've gone to as many Super Bowls as they have.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it, Peyton Manning was a great passer. He didn't go to that many Super Bowls because they didn't value defense and they didn't value running the ball. Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre were great quarterbacks, but how long did Green Bay neglect its defense? How long did they neglect its running game? This year, you're starting to see Green Bay flip the script and say, we want to play defense, we want to run the ball, even though we know Aaron Rodgers is great, because we could just go get 6 receivers again, and we could just go throw it all over the lot. That's not the way to win consistently in the NFL. You got to run, you got to play defense, and that's what the Seahawks have done. But I agree with you. They could go, if he was with Andy Reid right now, it would look exactly like Mahomes, maybe even better.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that Russell Wilson does not look as good as he could because he just doesn't throw as much as other quarterbacks do. He's just incredibly efficient when he does.
Ken, of course, says Kansas City Chiefs go all the way. Thanks, Dad, for that. Perry, he says Russell Wilson is obviously slower. They lost at home games and to a backup quarterback with the Saints. The decline is now.
But then again, on the revert, well, he's not that much slower. They don't run as much. And again, I think this is just the development of quarterbacks. This is the dream scenario. I had an athlete that came in. He was under maybe respected as a draft pick, and he was a third-round pick. But we saw the talent. He developed the passing game. Even though we haven't put the greatest weapons around him, he's still a great passer. And now we need him to run less. Because back in the day, it was about the offensive line's terrible. We need you to scramble when you need to throw. Now they're more about protecting.
He had to
him.
scramble. He had no
Well,
option.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Now that he's getting older, the Seahawks are putting more emphasis in let's get better offensive linemen. Let's run the ball a little bit more. Even if he is slowing down and he's losing a bit of a step, Perry, the way he throws the ball, that's not a problem. The problem with a lot of these other guys like Josh Allen, guys like Lamar Jackson, guys like, take your pick for any running quarterback. Marcus Mariota is another great example. When you take that running game away, they can't beat you with their arm. Russell Wilson is the true multifaceted quarterback where he can beat you both throwing and running.
Yeah, to say he's lost a step or slowed down, I think is just kind of ridiculous. I mean, yeah, he's not 23. He's not running all over the field like a young
But he's
man.
also 30. He's not 36. So
Yeah.
when we say slowing down, we're talking about incremental degrees
But-
instead of Tom Brady that looks like he can't throw anymore.
If
and he's accurate,
by
but I'm
God's
saying down the
grace,
field.
Lamar Jackson is playing at the age of 30, you're going to say he's lost a step a little bit. Yeah, but the thing about Lamar Jackson and Russell Wilson is there's never been a question about the accuracy.
Right.
Russell Wilson is one of the most accurate quarterbacks to ever play the game. I don't care what anyone ever says. It won't prove me wrong, and he's thrown it to a lot less talented receivers than you would say like Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, or anyone else for that matter. The talent and receiver core that Russell Wilson has thrown to has been very dismal compared to so many.
Lackluster, can we say? I mean, everyone loves Doug Baldwin, but I think Doug Baldwin was as good as he was because he played with Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
I don't think Doug Baldwin was a special player. I think Russell Wilson made him a special player, and I think the same is true about Tyler Lockett, where they're good players.
I think Tyler Lockett can succeed somewhere else,
Yes.
but he's better because of Russell Wilson.
And I think they're good players. I think Doug Baldwin was a good player, but I think they became great players and they became household names. They became guys that they're like, oh, well, they have one of the better underrated receivers because their quarterback is as good as he was.
Yeah. Paul, good to see you, man. He says, go Vikings.
Now, we did talk about it a lot at the beginning of the show. Again, we're going to end it. You can go back and watch everything we said. We didn't pick them to win, but I was the one saying that I think the Vikings are going to play close here. Drew thinks it's going to get a little bit farther out, but we both have to pick the 49ers. I know you're a Vikings fan by saying go Vikings. All I can say is it's going to be just as tough, maybe even a little tougher than we saw last week for the Vikings, and they barely got out of that one. So, again, I hope it happens for you, man, especially because you're a Vikings fan. I just can't bet on it. If you're asking me to put my money on it, I have no dog in this fight. I think we both got to go 49ers.
Yeah. I don't know who you picked in the last game. I picked the Packers.
I'm going to pick the Packers, too.
Wow.
Again, I think with... What have I said about the Seahawks that is
no
pointed to them
what I
winning?
said wow to was the fact that we picked all the same teams.
I wanted to go Titans over Ravens, but then again, there's the old saying, don't bet on your team. Don't bet on the team you love, because you always make those mistakes. I think the Chiefs are better than the Texans, especially the way the Texans looked, even though the Texans beat them first time in the regular season. As for the Packers and Seahawks, the reason I'm going Packers here, because they're down on the running backs. If Chris Carson was playing in this game, I would go Seahawks. And I wouldn't lose any sleep over it, even though last week was ugly. I would go Chris Carson, and the Seahawks are going to run the ball enough and just pound the ball on Green Bay. They're not going to do it with Homer.
Cody makes a great point. Seattle went to one gap run game over the RPO style from earlier. It's because of lack of talent running back.
Yeah, and I think, again, Marshawn Lynch isn't going to make the difference. You're not going to be able to run an RPO with Marshawn Lynch. He's not going to be that kind of guy. He's going to be the guy that when you need a yard and a half, he gets you a yard and a half. I really just don't see him dominating. They'll run. Turbin, and then they have Homer, who's looked good too. They'll run. They'll have some success doing it because they're the Seahawks. I just don't think they'll have enough success to beat the team like the Packers, who are also going to run, who are going to throw with Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers, and will have, I think, a little bit more of a, I don't want to call it a sexier game plan, but they're going to have a little bit more pizzazz in the offense with Matt LaFleur. I think he's going to call something crazy that maybe he's been saving up for the season, and he's saying, now that we're in the playoffs and we've come off this bye and we've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, we're gonna come out with some more exotic stuff than you would see. I don't think Seattle's going to be exotic at all. Seattle is going to be, we're going to run when we can and we're going to throw when we have to.
My last little point just about this game is last week when we talked about the Seahawks and the Eagles game, I brought up Clowney a lot, and I do think Clowney is going to make a difference in this game. And regardless if it's Carson Wentz or Josh McCown, they're not Aaron Rodgers, and we've seen it year in and year out. Aaron Rodgers make defenders with a lot of speed kind of look foolish coming in after his pocket. Yeah, he might get to him once in a while, but there's going to be that one play that he's going to make a miss, and he's going to make a big play off of it. And that's why I like Clowney. I think he's going to make a difference, but with Aaron Rodgers' experience, this is where the difference comes in.
Now, I think this might be the game that has the biggest gap. As weird as that is to say, because Seattle's defense is underperformed. I think Green Bay coming off rest is going to look a lot better than people think, especially because we're doubting them and all this negative attention's out there. Like, the Packers aren't that good. They're not really 13-3. They're going to come out and they're going to come out motivated. This is the Seahawks team that struggled against the Eagles' backup quarterback and barely. I mean, Josh McCown had a chance to tie the game at the end of the game.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be the game that gets the most lopsided. I don't think it's by a lot, but I think it's the most lopsided in this game. I think the rest of them stay comfortable, but close.
All right.
Well,
guys, thank you so much. It was a great show. It's going to be a great weekend of football. I'm excited. We're off. We're ready to watch football, drink some beer like we always do.
We've already started. Party don't stop till Sunday night.
Yeah, I'll probably just keep drinking.
Unless the Titans get eliminated, then there won't be a show on Sunday. I'm just kidding. We'll be here, same time, as always, 7:45 Eastern, 6:45 Central. Maybe we're complaining about my team losing. Maybe we're complaining about my team winning. Maybe we're talking about both of our teams out, and we're like, well, this sucks. Or maybe we're looking at a matchup in the AFC Championship, as well as all the NFC action that we haven't talked about. We have talked about it, but we'll talk about it more on Sunday.
Yeah, it's going to be a great weekend of football. I'm excited. Guys, thank you all for the likes, comments, and shares. It means the world to us. Let me reach out to everyone that gave a comment here. David, James, Matthew, Cody, Jeremy, Jason, John, Ray, Jacob, Chris, Ken, Justin, Matt, Frank, Ken, Eric, Brian, Perry, Jeff, Chris Paul. You guys are all awesome. Thank you so much.
Chris Paul was watching our show?
Chris Paul was watching our show.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is this what it's like to be famous?
And so was Matt Frank. I don't know if you know who that is because I don't. Guys, it'll be exciting to watch it. We can't wait to see you guys on Sunday. Hopefully your team wins. Hopefully my team wins. So was great.
We can't all be happy. That's all I can say. Somebody's going to be upset, but we hope you can join us again. We try to be as fair as possible. We'll be back 7:45 Eastern. Most likely, we might be on later because I think that game starts later. We'll be on after the late game on Sunday.
Yeah,
How
just
about that?
give us a few minutes and we'll be on.
We'll be on after the late game, Drew.
A few minutes after the late game.
Like right after the late game. But we'll be on after the late game. We hope you can join us.
Dude, it will be right after the game.
It'll be right after. I'm going to press the button as the game ends. In fact, while they're kneeling, I'm going to press the button. We'll be on live. No, it'll be a little bit after that. Any final thoughts before we get out of here, man?
No, man.
Because I'm ready to
go.
go.
Chiefs!
My final thoughts are
Chiefs!
11 points. Really?
Chiefs!
11 points? Really? 11? Did it have to be 11? It's an NFL game. You know that, right? All right. No,